Welcome back. Thanks for joining us this week. Today, we're going to be talking about debunking the 5 myths associated with preconception, conception, fertility, that whole as I call it, first trimester of this whole prenatal journey. I know it's not actually first trimester, but I like to reference it as a 5 trimesters of pregnancy. So, conception, fertility, all of that would be step 1. So, let's talk about the first myth. So, this is one that's really dear to my heart personally because many people believe that if you're over the age of 35, when you're trying to conceive, whether it's for the first time or the third time or whatever time, that it's really difficult to get pregnant or it's really difficult to have a healthy pregnancy. I'm here to tell you that my own children were conceived after I was 35. And it was only because I had a lot of support and colleagues and friends who also had been on this journey after the age of 35 that when I heard the term that I was having a geriatric pregnancy that I didn't just crumble up and give up. But unfortunately, most of us don't have that experience. And so you go in for your first visit and you're excited that you're trying to grow your family. Then you get told that, well, the clock is ticking. You're getting to be that age or you're already at that age. So just be warned. And in many ways, age is just a number in some aspects, especially when it comes to our health. It is a factor. I will not discount it entirely. However, there are so many different components of health when it comes to our wellness and our health status, right? I very happily work with some of my elderly, I'll say pediatric practice members who are in their 80s or getting close to being in their 90s. And I really, really hope that my life is as vitalistic as theirs when I get to be that state. And on the flip side, I sadly have newborns or really young pediatric practice members who are dealing with all kinds of health conditions or health concerns. So, age is certainly something to pay attention to. However, it's not that your ovaries just shrivel up and go away by the time you turn 35, right? So, there's a lot that we can do to help maintain your health or help to optimize your health and wellness so that if you're approaching that number or if you've crossed that number and you're thinking about expanding your family, that doesn't have to be the thing that keeps you up at night. Myth number 2 is that men don't have a biological clock. So, while it is true that men can produce sperm throughout their lives, sperm quality can decrease with age, right? But just like we know that women have cycles, right? And we go through that process all the time. Egg maturation, that whole cycle actually takes about 120 days. So, if you had PMS symptoms this month or last month, I would actually look to see what kind of stress you were under 4 months ago to identify what was happening to the egg that got released in this cycle or your most recent cycle. However, for men, the sperm cycle is actually about 60 days. So they go through that twice during the span that a woman would go through egg maturation. So, likewise, there are many things that we can do to help support the male sperm quality and sperm health so that we can help optimize fertilization and conception as well. Now, myth number 3. This is also something that I get asked about all the time. A lot of people think that, oh, I'm just taking a prenatal and I would like to start a family in the next 4 to 6 months. I think a prenatal, we get under the impression that taking a prenatal is sufficient. And prenatals vary, just like all other supplements. There's no regulation, unfortunately, on supplements. So it's really hard to tell what quality you're getting and if it's doing the right thing and if it's appropriate for your body. And marketing laws, at least for the United States, can vary in terms of how things get labeled on the supplement bottle, right? So it can be really difficult to navigate that. However, I will say that generally speaking, a prenatal, while potentially really useful, there can be a lot of different aspects of foundational nutrition that we would want to consider. So, how well is your digestion working? What is your sleep quality like? What is your energy level like? There are so many different aspects that we sometimes get used to navigating because it becomes our norm. However, we want to take a broader look at your foundational nutritional support so that we can really set the stage up. Ideally, I would work with couples at least 6 months, ideally a year in advance of wanting to conceive, so that we can really set up a strong foundation for both people to really optimize the health of your pregnancy and the health of your future child or children. Now, myth number 4 is that there isn't any kind of connection between your brain and your reproductive system. And this isn't always presented as this type of myth. However, a lot of times when people come into my practice, they are kind of surprised a little bit about when I start talking about the connection of their nervous system along with their reproductive health. So, did you know that there are actually nerves that come from your spine, well, your nervous system, your spinal cord, and they go into all the different aspects of our bodies, right? So they connect to every tissue, every organ, everything in our body is connected ultimately from our brain down into those organs. And then the communication goes back up into our brain. And so seeing a chiropractor can really help make sure that you have optimal communication between your brain and these organs. And so a lot of times people have low back pain that might drive them to the chiropractor. However, outside of pain, pain is just one symptom, but outside of pain, there can be other indications of spinal misalignments in your body. So you can chat with me if you'd like, or chat with the chiropractor if you know a local one that you'd like to connect with. All right. And then the last myth, myth number 5, is that what is often referred to as stress causes infertility. I would like to change that or modify that a little bit to be the myth is mental stress alone causes infertility. So you might have heard or you might have gotten the advice or taken the advice of, if you're trying to conceive, just go on vacation. And going on vacation is great. But what's the difference between going on vacation and trying to conceive at home in your day-to-day life, right? So there's three different types of stress. So mental, emotional stress is definitely one of those. But there's also physical structural stress, which is why we're talking about the connection between the brain and the rest of the body. There's also nutritional chemical stress. And so, what happens when we're on vacation is that we typically go away from that fight or flight mode and we go more into rest and relaxation mode. And so, the body can work more appropriately, right? Because if you're in fight or flight mode, if you're about to run for your life or try to deal with the impending threat, your body's not thinking about creating a baby at that time, right? So we need our body to be in that safe space of rest and relaxation so that we can optimize the chances of our fertility and getting pregnant. If this was helpful for you, I'd love for you to check out our mini course that's coming up. The link is below. And if you'd like to connect with me, please feel free to reach out. We'll have more videos talking about all of the other myths connected to all the other stages of pregnancy. Thanks for watching. See you next time.